And as well to Keith, our themes are all tying together here. It's lovely when that works out. I don't know how much of a scientist I am, though, David. I think Leslie put that on the Facebook site too. But I'm really tend to be, those of you who have been here before, more of a storyteller. But I wanted to push myself. I'm tempted to just be up here and tell stories today, and I'll tell some. But I wanted to push myself a little bit into the science of generosity and into figuring that out. So thank you for offering me this opportunity. I want to congratulate you all on having Kent Dobson coming as your next leader. Congratulations. I don't know Kent. I've heard him before, but I know you all. I heard he's here somewhere. But I know that Kent is getting a great gift in you all in my number of times being here throughout the years. Keith, when I saw you come up, I saw you had your box of your magic cup actually says giving envelopes on it. I was wondering how you were going to work that into the children's message there. But it was perfect, talking about the way that I phrased it. And again, I learned here in one iteration of this community many years ago from John Shelby Spong, and I've used it as my benediction for many years: to live fully, to love wastefully, and because there's always enough, right? And then to have the courage to be who we're made to be. So some of you think or thought that I was still at Heartside Ministry. I'm not there anymore. For the last 6 months, I have been a major gifts officer with the United Church of Christ, covering the western half of the country. So I have Michigan, Wisconsin, and everything west of the Mississippi. So I get to travel a lot, which is fun. I enjoy it. But I never in a million years imagined that I would be a fundraiser. I remember growing up in college, seminary, past then, seeing fundraisers and going, how in the world do you do that? Why would you do that? Isn't it, it's kind of like dinner table. We don't talk about politics, religion, sex, or money. Goodness, let's not talk about money. But over the last 5 years or so, 5-6 years, this has been a primary part of my job, even at Heartside. Raising $500,000 for that operation to continue as executive director. And then now in my role, and when I was at Heartside, I found that the fundraising was the fun and easy part of the job, which most people just look at me funny when I say that. But I didn't really like the administrative tasks. I found it fun and easy, particularly compared to personnel issues, any of you who are in management or HR. And also then, as was mentioned in our group this morning, certainly fun and easier than looking face to face at our society's most pressing problems, most challenging issues, and doing what we can, but those still being there right in front of us. But part of what makes it fun is I really believe that you all, and that people in general, want to invest in making a better world. People want to give and make a difference with their lives, with their money, with their time. And so that's what I get to do now. 70% of the time I meet with folks, and Leslie looked at me a little funny when I said I help them invest. I'm their investment advisor. I'm their investment advisor. The United Church of Christ, our mission in the world is a just world for all. So I help them figure out how they want to invest in making a just world for all. It's a different kind of return than the stock market, but we believe one that is equally, if not more important than that. And then I also get to go around and talk with faith communities, with pastors, with leaders, with regional groups around stewardship, fundraising, and things like that. I actually live on a street called Country Club Drive. And when we moved there 6 years ago, my mom said, there's the street that Andy would never want to live on. I want to say I live on Country Club Drive. It's kind of like my title, Major Gift Officer. For us in the United Church of Christ, that's defined as $5,000 or more a year. I believe that every gift is major. And many of you gave gifts to Heartside, and no matter the size of those gifts, anybody who gave a gift got a letter with a handwritten note on it saying thank you, because every gift matters and every gift makes a difference. In my travels, I heard a story of a church that needed a roof. Things you don't need to worry about when you use somebody else's space. This is so nice. Church that needed a roof. And so they put on a campaign. I think it was going to be $15,000 or so. And there was a young person in the church, a girl who had just had her birthday. I don't remember. It was somewhere in the 5 to 10 age range, who had just had a birthday and heard this announced in church: we need a new roof. And she went to her mom and said, I want to give my birthday money for the roof. Mom, you don't need to do that. And, no, I want to give my $100 to the church. So she went to the pastor after the service. I want to give my $100 to the church. And the pastor was like, oh, you don't, well, that'd be great. Thank you. It really spurred they would have done the roof whether this girl had made her $100 gift or not. But it did help spur other people to give. And more importantly, for our purposes today, it changed her life, because she had that story retold to her year after year after year. And she then saw herself as a generous person and saw herself as someone who made a difference in the world and who could continue to make a difference in the world. And that has played out then in how she is now living her adult life. You all are generous. I have to say that when I came here with Heartside and I brought artwork here, I sold more artwork here than I did anywhere else that I brought it. And I also received more gifts from you all. You would hand me cash and checks, and I would bring it back. And you are a generous people. We hear about Kids Food Basket. I know you do work at, I believe, an elementary school in Muskegon. Do you remember that? Right? I know you're doing a lot of great things with peace and justice in the community. And I think that the science of generosity and looking at generosity does play into this month's theme of peace. So it's not only what we usually think of with generosity and giving is how we're creating peace in the world. But what I want to look at today is the difference it makes in your life, in my life, in our lives when we give. And a lot of my work and presentation today comes from a book called The Paradox of Generosity: Giving We Receive, Grasping We Lose, by Christian Smith and Hillary Davidson, and they are both a part of the University of Notre Dame's Generosity Project. And it has been their goal to use science to figure out generosity. Their definition of generosity is the virtue of giving good things to others freely and abundantly. It often takes the form of a financial gift. We think about that on a regular basis. $350 billion will be given by Americans to charity this year. That has been a constant 2% average of our gross domestic product for decades, and also a constant 2% of folks' annual average income. It's just stayed right at about 2% for decades. 2.7% of Americans tithe or give 10% of their income away, while, and this was surprising to me, 45% give nothing. 45% of Americans donate nothing. So financial giving. Volunteering. Volunteering is a huge part of giving in this country and in our lives. People who volunteer, this study has found 5.8 hours, so if you get very exact about it, if you just want to round it to 6, 5.8 hours a month reported being very happy 48% of the time. 48% of them reported being very happy in their life. People who did not volunteer reported being very happy 28% of the time. So volunteering is a big form of generosity. Relational generosity, giving time, attention, emotional energy to others, taking time to have lunch with a friend or take a phone call or sit and watch someone's children. It's somewhat related to, but also a little bit different from neighborly generosity, being hospitable and helpful to others. We have a friend, her name is Esther, and my wife says everyone needs an Esther in their life. You probably know somebody who's very generous with their time and their gifts. When somebody is sick, it doesn't matter who it is, or when there's a family in crisis, Esther, and she has a family and a job, brings a whole box full of food, brings a meal to them. I don't know how she has the energy to do all this, but she does. And she's always reaching out and helping, or she gathers people in her home. This is neighborly generosity. So when we take the time to give in these ways, it increases our happiness, as we heard. For those who tithe, again, that's 2.7% of us, report being very happy 38% of the time versus 28% of the time for those who don't. And again, of those who tithe, 41% say they rarely or never experience depression versus 32% for everyone else. There's a lot of caveats in that, and we can talk about the different forms of depression and all of that, but let's just leave it at surface level for now. Gotta have follow-up topics if you're gonna invite me back. Physical health and longevity. Those who are very giving in relationships are much more likely to be in excellent health, 48%, versus those who are not very giving in relationships, 31% are in excellent health. 48% versus 31%. There's a study done on folks with high blood pressure. And what they did is they gave $40 a week to people with high blood pressure. To half of the group, they said, take this $40 and give it away. To the other half, they said, here's $40 to spend on yourself. And they tracked their blood pressure through this time and afterwards. And really, even the scientists were astonished to find that at the end of the period of testing of this, I remember it was a month or two, so it was fairly short, but the people who gave the money away, it reduced their high blood pressure the same as the medications they had been taking. And that kind of an impact on their physical body. And those who spend it on themselves, which that's the message we hear, like if you want to be happy, go spend money on yourself, their blood pressure stayed the same, stayed equally high. So it has a huge impact on our physical health and longevity. And then, like this one I was even more surprised by, but people who give money away actually become more wealthy. So a study was done, this is not from the Paradox of Generosity, of 200,000 people in 136 different countries. And when they spent money on others, it led, as we've talked about, to greater well-being and happiness. And it didn't matter how much you had or how much one gave. If you spent some of it on others, people personally saw benefits. Donating to charity in this study boosted happiness to a similar degree as doubling your income. And then there was a sub-study of this done by Harvard of 30,000 American families in 41 communities. And when people donate to charity, the household then, they control, again, okay, we're talking about social scientists here. They're doing everything they can to make this as scientifically sound as possible. So controlling for all other factors as much as possible. So you have identical households. There's a household who gives money away and one who doesn't. At the end of the year, the household who gives money away ended up with $375 more in income than those who didn't. And they found the same thing when running those numbers to look at people who are volunteering on a regular basis or giving blood on a regular basis. So it's just this generous spirit in general of giving to ourselves. And of course, then it helps our community health, right? The more we can give and work in our community, the better we are. I was meeting with a couple. This was a fascinating meeting. I just went over to Milwaukee, took a ferry over there to meet with these folks because back in March I had met with them and I was just meeting with them to say thank you. They're generous donors to the United Church of Christ. They give to a particular community in India. And I didn't ask. They just said, we could imagine giving $10,000 a year for the next 10 years to this community, $100,000 over the next 10 years. Whoa, Okay. This is somehow how it works in major gifts sometimes, that we say they give you a roadmap. Like, okay, now I know what my job is, to maintain that relationship and figure out how we can do that. And so I went over there to do that, and we got to talking, and I told them that I was doing this. And they said, we were in Burma, and the Buddhists there are charged as a part of their faith to do one good deed every day. And you really experience that in the community. And they went to visit a nursing home there, what we would call a nursing home. But it was very different. It had like 40 beds in one room. And they said, where's the kitchen? We don't have a kitchen. People do their good deed every day. People would make food, and they'd bring it in and give it to the people there. Except on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, we know the American tourists are coming. And this was a Wednesday. And there are two women out there who will make the food, and you can pay them for it, and you can get food and bring it in to them. What social scientists have found is that in communities that are generous, it's contagious. So even people who aren't Buddhists in this community will be more generous because it's a social organism that's all tied together. The other fascinating part of the meeting with this couple over in Milwaukee was that when I met with them in March, they had ideas about what they wanted to do with that money. Like most likely education, $200 a year for college. I mean, how many people could you put through college at $10,000 at $200 a year? Or maybe health care. Well, when I came this time, they had heard a report on NPR about a program where money was going directly to people in a particular community in Kenya. And then the people were allowed to do with it what they want. And the guy said, we have been doing mission all wrong for 150 years in this community now. It's time to change. We just want to give them the $10,000 and let them figure out what to do with it. And he wants to change the way churches and denominations are giving across the world, starting this way. He was inspired by Give Directly, is the program that's doing that pilot project that's had some tremendous results. So we're going to try and figure out how to do that. It's going to take some change. So why? I mean, why does this change happen? A piece of it is our brains and the chemicals. It's not just our brains, we know it's our whole body. So when we're giving, and I just think about, if you wake up every day and think, the whole random acts of kindness thing. Who am I gonna bless today? What good thing am I gonna do today? Who am I gonna make a difference for today? And when I start thinking that way, I can feel myself feeling better already. And then when you start doing it, really the oxytocin and the endorphins get going in our body, and then we're happier, but it also has an effect on our physical body, and improves our longevity. Other experiments have shown that people are promoted into positions of leadership after they're witnessed giving charitably. And some suggest that we're just hardwired as humans to get an emotional boost from helping others, which leads to more life satisfaction, better social interactions, and networking. Giving begets more giving as well. So then somebody who shares a lot is going to receive more back. Well, this is counterintuitive. I mean, we're told we're here, it's better to give than receive, but a lot of us kind of wink when we say that, like, I want a gift this Christmas, come on. We do for our birthdays. But even and this is my experience, and if you all want to chime in, but even in our talk this morning, I asked the question in there, tell us a story of an unexpected gift you've received. And then I asked the question, tell us a story of an unexpected gift, or tell us how you felt when you gave an unexpected gift. And at least my perception in there was that there was a lot more stronger emotion and connection to having given a gift than to one we received. And that's at least what these social scientists are finding. So I came in with a preconceived notion, so I might have just seen that because I wanted to see it. I'll admit my biases here. But it's also countercultural. In the quote here from The Paradox of Generosity, when it comes to generosity with money, time, skills, and relationships, we know that relaxing, letting go, and giving way is not often automatic or easy. This is especially true in American culture, which from all sides constantly pounds home messages of scarcity, discontent, insecurity, and acquisition. This is the second paradox, that a large majority of Americans fail to practice the kind of generosity that actually leads to happiness, health, and purpose in life. There's two people who stick with me in my mind in this context from Heartside. And for those of you who don't know, Heartside Ministry is a ministry to folks who are primarily homeless in Grand Rapids. One was Thomas, and Thomas had an incredible voice. I mean, like an operatic voice. He's an amazing singer, and loved to share that. So wherever he could, he would be singing. But he was also one who always had a smile on his face, and he was always helping other people. He would come to me and say, hey, this person has this issue. What can we do about it? And then there was Tammy. And Tammy, ironically, also liked to sing, but her voice was not nearly as good as Thomas's. But she really liked RC Cola, and she often walked around with a 2-liter of RC Cola. And anybody she saw, she offered it to. And, you could have, whatever, just have a drink. One time, I think I mentioned this before in another context, somebody had given her 2 McDonald's cheeseburgers, which she couldn't eat too. So she came and offered me one. Like, of all the people in that context, she offered me one. It's just a spirit of generosity these were happy people, and it so blew my mind how they could maintain that level of generosity and that level of happiness in this setting. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were looking out for others, that they were helping others, that they were sharing and giving away of themselves. A huge part of whether we're generous or not has to do with our outlook on life. Do we believe the world is a place of abundance, a place that there's enough, where we can make the pie bigger and not fight over every slice of pie? The ungenerous, by comparison, live narrow, cynical lives dominated by looming fear of poverty, their fear of scarcity and being scared. So, in the last 5 minutes here or less, how to change your life. Sustained and regular giving. So, one of the things the study has found, even if you make a huge gift, you go home today, you write out your will, you bequest it all to C3. Right? You're going to do that, okay. That's not going to change how good you feel. I'm sorry. Even if you went out and decided you're going to donate an organ tomorrow to somebody who needs it, that's a great thing to do. But that's not going to improve your overall outlook on life, your well-being. What was found is that it needs to be sustained and regular giving. So find some place to volunteer on a regular basis if you're not doing that. Or find some place, some friends, some family who need your help. Another piece, first, sustained and regular. Second, relational. Give to people and places you care about. There's something about empathy in here that also gets those chemicals going in our body that make us feel good and improve our health. Spending as little as $5 to help someone can increase your own happiness. It's not about the dollar amounts we give. It's about the perceived impact of the donation. If you can see your money making a difference, it will make you happy regardless of the amount. 3, have a good outlook on life, the abundance versus scarcity mentality. And then 4th, just decide you want to be generous and start practicing it. The author of The Paradox of Generosity, Christian Smith, says, I was not a generous person when I started this project. And so he decided and said, I'm going to start being generous. I'm going to work towards that, giving away 10% of my income. So if it's finances you want to be generous with, pick an amount to give away every month or every week. And find some place that really you connect with. Or do as suggested earlier, get up every day and say, who am I going to make a difference for today? And just be on a lookout for that. Some stories were told this morning of, the whole pay it forward thing, right? They were told in there from the perspective of having received that, being in line at the coffee shop and you get up and it's your turn and they're like, the person ahead of you just paid. And that, in this particular case, changed that person's day. Like, not happy about things, the line was long and it was taking too long and, and boom, you can change somebody's day that way and who knows where it goes. I know somebody in Grand Rapids who walks regularly in the mornings and he puts, I don't know the exact amount, it's less than $5. I think a couple dollars in his pocket every morning, and he knows that he's going to get asked for money every day. And so he decided, I'm going to have $2 in my pocket that I'm going to give away every day, and kind of listens for what who thinks, who to give it to. There's some people that he sees regularly. There's some people who maybe on a generous day he gives them $5 and then they ask for 10. There's some people who have a really good story, be it true or not. We've talked about that before. You can honor the story. Here's something interesting to try. Try giving with your family or with a group of people. I know some of us, especially the older we get, we have more resources. Maybe we include the younger folks in our family in deciding how to do that and how to give that. And we train people in generosity, because generosity is something that we can grow and mature in. That's a fascinating one to think about and to work on. Find some place to volunteer. And then in a few minutes, we'll have an offering here. If you haven't, notice that. I think it's called something different, though. Where is it? I have it here. Shared responsibility, right? Shared responsibility. And don't be afraid to talk about money here. It's okay to talk about money. I'm going to end with this Hindu quote. Help your sister's boat across, and your own will reach the shore. Help your brother's boat across, and your own will reach the shore. There's a lot more questions around how we choose where to give, the relationship in our country of charity and philanthropy to justice. But today I invite us to work on being more generous so that we can be happier, healthier, maybe even wealthier. Thanks for being here. It's always a delight.